Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman. This is Matt Biolas from Lost Surfboards, and we have the Masim with us. And
Masim.
the Masim is the Mayhem. I don't know if anybody knew this, but it's the Mayhem asymmetrical because, you know, a lot of time
A genial asymmetric.
there's a ton of confusion about the Masim. The biggest one being that people think that the board is only for going one direction on the wave. And there's some asymmetricals, specifically windsurfing asymmetricals, were made for going one direction on the wave. But all of the other asymmetricals, like snowboard asymmetricals, surfboard asymmetricals, are made for the stance, right? Like,
Yeah, they're made for the stance. You know, atomically to balance with your body. You work so much differently on your heels and your toes.
And I think, you know, like coming from, you do a ton of snowboarding. And
ton.
I mean, how long have snowboarding asymmetricals been around in carving boards?
I bought my first asymmetrical snowboard in 1991. It was a Nitro Pyro.
Yep,
And the
I
story
remember
about that board is on our website in the description of the Masim. There's actually a photo of that board. So I first got turned on to asymmetrical as a concept in boarding in 1991. At the time, it was the best snowboard I ever had. It was the first snowboard I ever had where I could do proper heel carves without sliding, you know, and actually set the edge and carve on my heels.
So we're coming up on 30 years ago that, you know,
Yeah.
it's been around, you know, and kind of firmly established in carving boards.
Yeah, and I made a couple asymmetrics at that time, but I wasn't a very good shaper yet, and they were horrible. And then around 2001, I read an article around 1999 or 2000 of an asymmetrical guy who was like kind of a feral guy surfing barrels in Indonesia and Western Australia on asymmetrics, and I got inspired. And I made myself a couple asymmetrical shortboards for one of my first trips to the Menawais, maybe second or third trip, 2001, and I made an amazing board. And it had a diamond tail on my toe and a pin tail on my heel. And I did some of the best surfing of my life and rode some of the best waves of my life. Funny how that happens on that board. But there was no comprehension or thought of selling them to the public, or we weren't even doing models per se. I mean, at that time. But you know, it faded I just faded from it. And then, you know, 6-8 years ago, or 10 years ago, I met Carl Ekstrom and I had him make me a board. And at that time, there was that underground crew of kids in San Diego and guys even in San Clemente and people around the world, kind of a burgeoning underground boutique, kind of backyard asymmetric thing going on. And me as a designer, I get interested and it gets my creativity going, like, oh, these guys are doing it. And then it almost got a little obnoxious, where there's just like fins going everywhere and crazy over the top. And basically asym, like I call it shock and awe, like boards basically for Instagram fodder, just to like shock and awe,
As wild as they could possibly
as wild
make
as they could be. And there's a few guys making really good ones and riding them and testing. Ryan Birch is doing a brilliant job with them. But a lot of really bad ones, a lot of boards that are too extreme. And in about 2013, I started making a couple of these. And I took a V2 stub, one of our rockets, and asymmetric it. And I had really good success with it personally. I made a few for myself. I have the boards. They're on the website in the story about the Masim. 2013, 2015. And once again, I showed it to my sales and my guys and go, hey, do you think we could sell this? No. And then 2015, 16, 17, you see more and more guys getting more and more credibility and making better boards and ripping on them. I'm like, I still believe in the asymmetric. And I want to take my asymmetric, my little V2 stub that I turned into an asym and made customs for some friends. Aaron Cormican ripped on it, and a few other guys in Florida, and a few guys in San Clemente. I want to make it available to everyone. It's a tall thing. You know, you got to make goofy and you got to make regular, and you got to ask guys like you to stock both.
Right.
So, but we believe in it. And to tell you the truth, in this year, 2019, I really let my vanities fly with my lineup of boards this year. You know, we did the Evil Twin, we did the Rad Ripper and the Retro Ripper, we did the Masim, and we did some really extreme boards. And this one is really my favorite board. This is my favorite board. I really, really love this board, and all my friends and people that actually get them and ride them love this board. It's great. Its board's great for anyone that rides short, wide, low rocker boards that are designed to actually have some performance involved. And it's just a really fun board. And by putting the round pin on the heel, you get this confidence in backside bottom turns and front side wraps and carves and like bite that you don't normally feel in a short, wide, high volume board. So when you say high volume, you think that the asymmetric concept, you don't really see guys riding it at a world tour level. Like I could make a round tail heel with a squash tail toe for Koloe or Carissa, and I think they'd surf great on it. But because they're riding such low volume boards to their body weight and their power, they don't need to take some of that area out to control the board. But us, we're riding boards that are high volume to our body weight. And by fine tuning it and taking this surface area out from behind your back heel, it really sharpens up your surfing. But if the whole board's a pintail, it kind of stiffens up the board and it takes away some of the small wave liveliness, takes away some of the playful funness. So by going with the ASIM and leaving the diamond on the toe, you get this long, straight, drivey, wide, playful. So you get drive off of it, off your front side bottom turn. You get drive coming off the top on a backside carve or roundhouse. And you also have it retains enough width so you can hit the lip and pop it free, backside or front side. So it gives a lot of freedom and liveliness. It's still in small waves, as opposed to making it a pintail on both sides. The rocker's flat, the tail's wide, so we put this channel in on one side. It really accentuates the ASIM MESIM concept. The channel is basically, there's two kinds of channel. There's channels that cut through rocker to give you speed, like long, deep six or belly channels. And then there's like these little channels that are meant as more like escape valves. So this is more of an escape valve. It lets the board release and it lets you do tighter turns. So this is on your toes. You know, this board's a goofy, but for me, it would be on my toes on a regular. It enables you to like square up and go shoot straight up the face. It lets the water get out, you know. And then the heel side has a little less V and a little less release because it's already taken the surface area out. It's basically, we call it the genial asymmetric. The fins are pretty standardized. They're not crazy radical, but you can really have a lot of fun and play with it. Mason did a beautiful 5-minute episode, one of his, and he did some amazing surfing, riding the board with like 2 MR rear trailers on one side and 2 mediums on the other to hold in the wider toe side. And on the side that he knew was going to lock in and bite, he did tiny little fins. So even though the fin placement is non-asymmetrical, Mason decided to start putting asymmetrical fin setups in it. And if you watch the video of him, it's crazy. Like these whips that he's doing on this wedge in Hawaii is super cool. You can put that in. So we're not staring at us all the time. You got the way you make these 8-minute edits work is you drop in footage.
All right, Matt, now that we better understand what this board's about, here's the big question. Where does it fit in somebody's quiver? Because it's based off a V2 stub. So like, where do you surf this board in your quiver?
This board is 1 to 4 foot.
Okay.
I've never surfed overhead waves on it. I've never bothered, never needed to, but I've surfed it knee high to head high. This board excels in waist high to chest high apex, but this is a 1 to 4 foot board. And the reason being is if you're going to bring something this radical where people are going to have to make an investment,
right,
and you're going to use this board a lot. So I'm asking you, I'm challenging you and saying, hey, this is a creative, this is a board that really works. It's almost every one of my friends, everyone in our company, or everybody that rides this board loves it. I mean, Griffin absolutely loved this board. Koloe loved this board. Both nailed great clips on this board. Mason loved this board. On the other end of the spectrum, I love this board. My partner, Mike Riola, all my friends, my 50-year-old friends, 30-year-old guys, local rippers. It's a small wave surfboard. It's a board that you're going to keep in your car and ride in blown out, you know, hip high waves. You can ride it in chest high waves. You can ride it at perfect head high lowers. It's a board you'll use a lot. If you ride alternative hybrids type, you know, shorter, wider boards with conservative rocker and a bit of volume, you'll like this board. The really good surfers are riding this board 4 inches shorter than them, 6 inches shorter than them. I think Griffin and Koloe rode them like, you know, 5 6s. Average surfers riding it about their height, maybe 1 to 2 inches shorter. The volume's there, the rocker's low, the speed's there, and it bites and turns with with precision.
Yeah, I mean the rocker paddles, especially in
Yeah,
the V2 stub.
and
I mean,
this
it
is
paddles
even
like a
lower,
machine.
and this is lower, wider, and flatter than a rocket. This is off the V2 stub, which was a grovel rocket. Yeah.
And what's your fin setup like for you personally on your own board?
This board, I personally ride it as a thruster.
Okay.
I love this board as a thruster. Power surfers like Koloe like it as a thruster. Mason loves it as a crazy quad. Sha Kobayashi, one of the best surfers in my company, loves it as a quad. I'd say it's almost split down the middle between quad and thruster, but I like it as a thruster.
So 1 to 4 foot, which is, I mean, those
That's-
guys get to surf perfect waves all over the world, but 1 to 4 foot is basically
it's
everybody
everybody's-
watching this video
everybody's
every day
life.
of their life.
Yeah.
You know, so you can get a lot of use
If
out of it.
you invest in this board and you like it, it's going to be a board you'll ride a lot.
A lot, yeah. That makes sense.
It's not going to be like window dressing or a board that sits in your garage waiting. Oh, I like it, but it only works in certain ways. No, this is the board you can surf 3 in the afternoon, low tide, blown out junk, and have fun.
Right.
Yeah.
That is, that's the story on the Lost Mayhem Mason.
The Mason.
If you have any questions about this board or you'd like to place an order for one, give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. We want to thank Matt Mayhem Biolas of Lost Surfboards for hanging out with us here at Real and Waterman's Retreat.
Yeah.
And his Groms.
Really love
We're
it.
psyched that the Groms are here
Really love
too.
it.
River and Ryder, thank you for coming. And yeah, man, thanks, man. Thanks for the lowdown on the boards
Thank you.
and all the good boards
Yeah.
for the shop and for all of us as well.
Thanks for
and
the support.
thanks for tuning in.